What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ. Annabelle gives a nut job in a glass castle. Welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at the minuscule movie news and movie trailers that have popped throughout the week across the interwebs. And of course, Joel will give you his review of the Nut Job 2. That's terrible. The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature. I will give you a review of Annabelle Creation, and he will also give a review of The Glass Castle, starring Brie Larson and Woody Harrelson. What will Joel think about the animated porno flick for kids and The Glass Castle starring Captain Marvel herself? And what will I think of a prequel of a spinoff that was also a prequel of a popular horror film called The Conjuring? So what will we think about all those three? You're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you're searching on the internet for, one of those, stupid how-to videos on YouTube, how to make a cabinet door or something, I don't fucking know what you guys do on Sunday, but you accidentally came across this podcast, and you're not a movie fan. Well, my co-host and I will convince you to be one. That is what we do. We talk about movies, we are passionate about them, and we try to make you as passionate as well. This is episode 195, and if you're new to the show, welcome. Hopefully that wasn't a opening that scared you off. What we usually do is we look at over some movie news and movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week, and we will commentate on them for you guys. And then we will also have reviews of movies that have come out, during this weekend, and we will review them for you guys. And of course, the box office results for the weekend. On this week's episode, just like the opening said, Joel will have a seizure while reviewing the Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature. I will be reviewing the prequel to a prequel, which was a spinoff to a film of the Conjuring universe, Annabelle Creation, and then Joel will end it with The Glass Castle. So Joel will be taking on two films this week, and I will be by myself with one. I'm sure everyone will be shocked as to which one will probably be the best out of the three. So that's what we do on the show, and that's what this week entails. And since it's episode 195, guys, we're down to the final five. We're getting there to episode 200. It is coming up shortly. But I'm not going to celebrate by myself. I'm not that fucking lame. I will be celebrating with this gentleman that's always with me every single week. It is Joel. Joel, what is going on with you this week?
Well, first of all, I feel like that's exactly what a lot of people do on Sunday is they look at videos of how to create cabin doors. That sounds exactly like the kind of thing that people do on the biblical rest day. I'm pretty good. It's been a busy week at work, except for today. It was completely dead, and I worked for 7 hours with nobody coming in or few people coming in. But other than that, I'm enjoying the heck out of my job and happy to have it. And saw I think I watched 8 movies this week, so it's been hectic in that respect. But loving every second of it. So. Except for the Nut Job 2, but we'll get to that. But yeah, absolutely. How are you? How's things in your neck of the woods?
It's going pretty good. It was a pretty decent little week. Just caught up on shows and whatnot, and saw Wind River on Monday. We aren't reviewing it on this episode, nor will we review it on this podcast. But I'll give you my quick thoughts. At the end when we get to the box office, but. Yeah, it was just kind of a slow week. It's an even slower week this week. There's no screenings or anything. I'm a little sad, but that is okay. We love doing this shit for you guys. So, without any further ado, let's get this started because we got 3 movies to review, and you know that Joel is busting the nut as we speak because he's just excited to talk about the Nut Job. I just had to make that correlation. So, all right, so let's begin with some movie news, if you will. So, Joel, one of your favorite movies this year is The Lost City of Z, and it's actually directed by Mr. James Gray, which sounds like, he would be an artist with an alcohol addiction. James Gray is actually directing another movie, which I'm assuming you're super excited about, and it has added some cast members and whatnot. Can you care to explain what this is?
Yeah. Oh man, this is one of my favorite one of my favorites. This is one of my most anticipated. James Gray is one of my favorite modern directors. I think the guy just makes great movies. Basically, the Yards, The Immigrant, now Lost City of Z this year. The guy is on a roll. He's one of the great modern humanists, I think, in the movies. He makes very humanist films, and he's coming up with a sci-fi epic called Ad Astra. And man, I love sci-fi, so that's my favorite genre to look forward to. A new film, and I cannot wait. This one, it had already added two cast members with Brad Pitt, who will play the main character named Roy McBride. He's looking for his missing scientist father, who went to Neptune to hunt for extraterrestrial life and disappeared. And the father is going to be played by Tommy Lee Jones, which is a great pairing. I think that I've been waiting for these people to play relatives of each other because I don't think it's happened before. And it just added Ruth Negga, who went, kind of has broken out in the past half decade or so, and then was nominated last year for Loving. And she's being added to the cast. Not really sure what her role is yet, but whatever the role is, I'm sure it's she's probably accompanying Brad Pitt. I can imagine, and so I can't wait. This is a great cast that has been assembled, and it's directed by James Gray. I mean, the guy's he's a master. This sounds less like a summer blockbuster sci-fi adventure thing, than like a more sort of closer to AI, artificial intelligence, which was summer, but still it was more artful than your regular summer, space movies or sci-fi movies or whatever. Something, closer to stuff like the original Solaris from the 70s and that kind of era of foreign sci-fi. This sounds closer to that than, the usual term that sci-fi epic describes, and I think that's what's got me most excited. So I'm hugely looking forward to this.
And that's exactly why I gave you this story. Listen, I saw The Lost City of Z. I couldn't review it because of audio issues in the theater, and I haven't seen many of his other movies, but I can tell you, like, from just visually watching The Lost City of Z, I really appreciate his style, and he kind of takes like the definition of highbrow and like applies it to every single genre you can think of, and really just kind of makes it into the best piece of art he can. And this sounds like highbrow sci-fi, and I'm always down for both. Actually, I love dumb sci-fi. I love sci-fi that makes you think. And really just kind of takes you into places that you don't want to go to in your brain hole. And so this one, when you add a talent such as James Gray, and then you add like Ruth Negga, and then of course Tommy Lee Jones and Brad Pitt, it could be one of those movies that could be in contention for like Oscar talk. And we haven't even seen it yet. Just from the cast alone, you're adding talent. It makes sense. Ruth Negga just got a nomination, so that makes sense to put her in stuff like this. Because she isn't really doing much. I mean, she was in Loving, and of course she's in that show Preacher, but she's not really in any big movies. Now, I'm not saying Loving wasn't an important and big movie, but it did have a kind of like core audience. Now, this one will get a lot more eyes on her, which is really good because she is a very talented woman. So we'll finally get to see her play with Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones and stuff. That's pretty fucking cool. So yeah, this one sounds really interesting indeed, and yeah, I'll be down to see it, and hopefully there won't be any more fucking theater issues. Speaking of movies that tickle my fancy, Joel, because this wasn't the only piece of like movie-related news that I've never even heard of, and then when you read the synopsis, you're like, yeah, that's tickling my fancy pretty hard and wet. That was really gross. All right, so the next piece of news is I'm super excited for. Speaking of James Wan, who did co-produce Annabelle Creation, which he has produced pretty much everything in this kind of Conjuring universe, so to speak. He is going to be producing another film called Malignant, and is based on The Malignant Man, which is a graphic novel, which he actually co-created, by the way, James Wan. And the news is that director, hold on.
Becca Thomas.
Yeah, sorry, Becca. I was about to say Betty, and I was like, no, it's the other one. And like, my phone went dark, and so I had to open the passcode. Sorry for the awkward pause. But you guys have been around for almost 200 episodes. You guys know how it works. All right, so Becca Thomas, who had directed some Stranger Things, and she's going to be attached to do this, and James Wan's producing it. Hey, listen, I'm all for great talent like James Wan. Getting people from the TV realm and really kind of pushing them into feature films and whatnot. And just to give you guys a little synopsis of the Malignant Man, so to speak. It's not going to be called Malignant Man, but Malignant will be focusing on a patient dying of a terminal disease who discovers that his malignant tumor is actually a mysterious alien parasite he's assigned to battle a secret army. What? Sure. When you read that, you're like, oh wow, this could actually be like a really fun, kind of middle of the road, like sci-fi, not highbrow, not lowbrow, but it's like in the middle where it's just like a straight up sci-fi thriller that just is exciting from beginning to end. You get great talent like Becca Thomas. If you guys have seen Stranger Things, that plays out like an 8-hour long movie, and they actually have different people that directed all the episodes. Now, there might be one director that directs 2 episodes and then they'll switch to another person, but that's still impressive when you have all these different people still capture the same tone and capture that kind of like feature film look and feel. So, yeah, get people that worked on that show, which is really hot and popular right now, throw them into a movie produced by James Wan. I'm all down for it because James Wan is one of my favorite directors, period, and one of my favorite kind of content producers out there. And you're probably thinking like, really him? And it's like, listen, the guy's really good at creating horror. Now that he's venturing out into action films like A Furious 7, and now sci-fi like Malignant, and of course he's doing a superhero film now with Aquaman. So the guy's like diversifying his portfolio, which is exciting because as much as I like his horror movies, I want to see him do more, and I want him to just kind of take over all genres. So this is the next step in that, to do something that's probably going to be a little bit of horror as well. It sounds like a horror-based synopsis, but it's going to be primarily like a sci-fi thriller from what it's being described. But yeah, this sounds like a fantastic piece of news, so I'm totally down for this. Joel, we haven't really talked about Stranger Things, but I know that you aren't really a fan of like Netflix shows, but that's the one show that you really gravitate towards. So when you hear this news that someone that directed a portion of Stranger Things is coming to the big screen with this type of synopsis and James Wan producing, does it tickle your fancy?
Yeah, I mean, I binged Stranger Things in one day, and I'm likely to do that again in October. And anybody who directed an episode who wasn't already like established, anybody who wants to do that, I'm down for them taking on a project like this, because that was a show with pretty terrific direction, particularly of stuff like scenes involving visual effects and high concept stuff. So I'm certainly a fan. I know nothing about the comic, but I'm also down for anything that James Wan is behind. I'm excited for Aquaman, and I suspect that I'll probably remain excited for Aquaman. I was a big fan of Furious 7, so I'm pretty down for this. I know nothing about it beyond what you've said, but it's certainly intriguing. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, this next bit of news is baffling.
Okay, so did everyone just like hear the like very like depressing, like disappointing pause that Joel just gave? Like, that was the type of pause that was like, listen, I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you, but I'm extremely disappointed in the actions that you have taken to get to this point. So, Joel, what type of story elicit a response like that?
Okay, so, all right, this is a story of two sides in terms of excitement and total like eyebrow-raising just bafflement. So, of course, I'm down for a streaming service that offers all Disney movies. Because, I mean, it's Disney. I'd be able to watch any of their movies anytime I want to if I signed up for it. And but this is so weird because I feel like so about 5 years ago, I think it was, Disney said that they were going to be making Netflix kind of their number one streaming, place to send their movies for streaming purposes. And in fact, we've seen in recent times where, like, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks after one of the Marvel movies goes on Blu-ray, it shows up on Netflix. And that's been a pretty interesting little thing to see because, all of a sudden Doctor Strange is on Netflix and it's pretty neat. And, but, so this is weird. And already Netflix is like $30 billion in debt. So this is going to be an interesting thing to see, to watch unfold. So Disney has decided that it would launch 2 online streaming services. Now, one of them's not really super, related to the show, and that's an ESPN streaming service, which is interesting, I guess. But the other one, the one that I want to talk about, is the Family Film Service, and they are going to be, obviously streaming a lot of their mainstays, a lot of the old titles, likely the Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar movies that have come out across, the last 20 years. And this is the weirdest thing I've ever heard because they're basically throwing Netflix under the bus. Because Netflix has to rely on a lot of non-original content right now, while they're still finding sort of their voice with, and let's be frank, even though they've made a lot of, original content in the last few years, they're still relying on all of the stuff that they don't produce. And Disney is a huge chunk of that, especially right now, 5 years into this agreement. So I have to wonder possibly if it was a 5-year agreement only, and that this December is when they'll probably start, removing that stuff. And in which case, like Thor Ragnarok, when that comes out in November, probably would not be on Netflix because by the time it comes out on Blu-ray, maybe this'll kick in and then it'll just be put on there. I don't know, but it's very weird to me because it just seems like they're throwing Netflix under the bus. They're like, well, see ya, and it's just very strange. I'm sure that I'll probably sign up for the Family Film Service. That certainly sounds like a very neat thing for parents and their kids right now, to just have immediate access to any of the like the 90s animated movies that they made. That would be awesome. But this is weird. This is just weird. So I don't know. What do you think about this?
Well, Joel, weird's not the right word. The correct phrase is Disney likes to stroke that veiny ego of theirs and try to take over the world. So, yeah, this makes total sense to me. I mean, it was bound to happen. I mean, these guys have so much money and so much clout and control of pretty much everything nowadays. Is that, when they look at that and go, "Whoa, we can make a little bit more money, and we really don't have to." We don't have to like go to an outside source. This is everything that's internal. So all they have to do is just put their shit on a streaming site that's run by them and just kind of funnel in, all their movies into the streaming service. And so they're getting more money for something that's already within their system. So it's a smart business move. They don't have to really do anything. So it was bound to happen. This reminds me back in the day, like when I was a kid. And, my parents had DirecTV and whatnot, and, a lot of people would be like, I wish channels would just a la carte, and just be like, well, I wish we just kind of pick and choose. Now that we live in that fucking world, now it's hard to keep track, because, like, now you got Netflix, you got Hulu, you got Amazon, you got HBO, you got Showtime, you got Starz. You can actually a la carte all this shit now. So the fact that there's going to be possibly another fucking option, Joel, my wallet can't take it anymore. My wallet has been beaten just to death by subscription services. We need to stop this shit. And to be quite frank with you, as much as I love Disney, I can't see myself paying, because they're going to charge top dollar. it's fucking
Yeah.
Disney. So I'm imagining they're probably going to go HBO status and probably be anywhere from $15 to $20 a month. And, you know, Joel's right, though. That's really good for families. I know a couple of my friends who have a son who is barely 2 years old, and that's all he does is watch animated movies. So it's actually perfect. You set that shit on, and it's perfect for kids. You don't have to worry about them going off watching like some R-rated movie or a porno on the site like a Netflix. Even if you have the parental control on, it's all family-friendly content. So it's like it's good. It's a good babysitter. I mean, shit, it's one of the cheapest babysitters you'll ever have to have. And, you know, for families, I can see them paying for it. For myself, as much as I like the studio, and I love me some animated films, Pixar, Disney animation, live action, Marvel, and, being a casual fan of Star Wars, I know that they have a lot of property there. But for me personally, I don't want to pay for it. It's one of those things where, like, I don't mind buying a movie on Blu-ray or seeing something in theaters if I want to see it. I don't really care about a streaming service for it. So it's not really particularly for me, but I get it. It's a smart business move, and we're going to get to that point where if this is successful, I will guarantee you everyone's going to come out of the woodworks. Even Sony and Paramount, who are like flopping on their dicks right now, going, "Oh God, we can make more money. We could try doing a streaming service." Then, of course, they'll fail and file for bankruptcy. But I can see myself like maybe doing it in the future if I had more money and if I'm curious about it. But as of right now, someone who could barely afford the streaming services I have, no, thank you. And if it is successful, you can definitely see maybe like bigger studios like a Warner Brothers or something kind of take a crack at it. So, but then again, they own HBO, so it's like, fuck, man, like how many more services do we need, Joel? It's headache inducing. So business wise, yes. Personally, no. So let's see the next story. All right, so James Cameron is going to probably die soon, but before he dies, he wants to make his 700 Avatar films. Now, God bless the man. He wants to do it. Just let him do it. And so there was news that came out, because there's news every single week of him going, well, it's coming. The movies are coming. Oh, we got to push it back 2 more years. Oh, it's coming. So that's fantastic. So this actually isn't like a release date story. I know, everyone clap, yay. This is actually a look into how the movies are going to be, how the story is going to be. So James Cameron has come out and said that Stephen Lang, who was kind of like the human villain in the first Avatar, he's going to be the main villain for the next 4. Now, this raises some interesting questions. First of all, we know that he's not going to die now, so he's going to be in the next 4. I'm wondering if, Joel, just bear with me here. I'm wondering if we're going to see kind of one of those things where maybe he is a villain who turns into maybe an anti-hero, maybe turns into a hero type of deal, because I'm imagining that he can't just be a straight-up villain for 4 films, so maybe, I don't know, maybe he like gets knocked out or whatever, and like his body's like transported into an avatar like in the 3rd or 4th film or something. I have no clue or what he's going to do, but him being in kind of like all 4 of them as the through line, I'm okay with it. Listen, I like Avatar quite a bit. I actually like the long-ass version that James Cameron put on the extended edition Blu-ray set. And Stephen Lang is fun to watch, but he is definitely not the reason you go to see these films. But it's nice to have a perspective now in terms of where he's going with the story. And the fact that he's going to be kind of like the overlording like villain in all 4 of them, yeah, I'm curious to see where his arc goes. I wasn't really fond of his arc in the first one, so I think that's what kind of picks up my interest a little bit more, is like, okay, if he's gonna like string along for this whole franchise, what is his arc gonna be? So, if it's straight up villainy throughout the whole thing, at least it'll be fun to watch. If there's gonna be a change of heart in the middle of it, that will be fun to watch. So, I don't know. This news strikes me as interesting, Joel. A nice peek into how the stories will progress. So, is Stephen Lang being in pretty much the rest of this franchise, does it kind of concern you that he's going to be the villain for all 4 of these? Or, like, do you think that James Cameron's going to do something kind of different with his character and really, have an interesting arc and not just, like, be, 100% cheese all the time?
Well, he's gonna have to do something different than his character right now because he died in the first one.
Now, Joel, the spoiler alert, folks. Like,
Guys,
I listen. You guys are listening every single week, and we're like, you know what? Like, we want to be courteous. We're not going to spoil anything. And it's like, this movie came out like last week, and Joel is like, like spoiling Avatar. Not everyone in the world has seen it. It literally came out last week, and Joel's just dropping shit like that. I don't get you, Joel. Well, what's going on over there?
it's been 8 years
Oh.
since it came out. It made $2.5 billion.
Which means everyone's
Haven't seen it yet? Then you're being like, then you're trying to have a hot take or something. I don't know, but everybody's seen this movie except for the three people who haven't. If you forgot most of it, I guess yeah, whatever, you've been reminded. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. This is baffling to me because clearly the finite. Let's just say even though I've already said it, let's just duck around it. The finite fate of the character is a very interesting lead-in to, what state is he going to be in? Because I don't understand this at all. I don't get it. I think that, I like Stephen Lang, of course, he's awesome, but I just don't understand this. It's super weird to me, but we'll see. I guess we'll see.
As you can tell, Joel doesn't have two fucks about this piece of news. He's like, oh god, why?
I thought the character was fun. Not much of an arc, like you said, but I don't really think he needed one. I think that he was a fairly solid villain, sort of in a boilerplate way. But nevertheless, it'll be interesting to see how they do this, and most of all, whether James Cameron actually makes them, because he's been making them for now 28 years. He's been making the sequels, so or it seems like it. So I'll be interested to see. I'm a fan of the first one, so I'm certainly excited to see more of this world or these worlds or whatever. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see where it goes. All right. So the last piece of news that I'll talk about is the Hellboy reboot. So by the way, so there's this title that's floating around called Hellboy and the Blood Queen or something like that. Hellboy: Rise of the Blood Queen. That's not officially the title. It's actually apparently just Hellboy. This is a reboot of the first movie that came out in 2004, and we've got a villain, and that is Milla Jovovich, however you say her name, the woman who was in the Resident Evil franchise for 78 years. And it'll be interesting to see her make this jump because I don't think she's played very many villains, and she's been playing a heroine for a while now. So this will be interesting to see this happen. I'm certainly excited for the Hellboy reboot, despite the fact that it doesn't involve Del Toro. Obviously I'm a fan of the cast already with David Harbour and Ian McShane. So I'm excited to find out what's going on with this, basically what the story is, because I don't know who the Blood Queen is. I don't know anything about the comic books or anything like that, but certainly intrigued by the casting of Jovovich as the big bad.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, and I could be totally wrong, I'm just giving you guys a heads up, because I don't have time to research it right now. But I saw a movie in 2010, I believe, called The Perfect Getaway, and if anyone knows the twist in that movie, I believe she turns out to be kind of a creeper. So that's like the first time where I was like, oh, she's playing like a villain kind of. That's cool. Like she rarely ever does that. So I think her being in this is kind of cool. Like I want to see something different from her, because Joel's right. She's been doing the Resident Evil films since the year 1902. So it's like, I want her to do something different. She always plays that badass heroine that we all love to just watch and I guess hate fuck, because what's really funny about the Resident Evil movies is that they get worse as they go, but God damn it, we still go see him. Yeah, no, so like, you know, and she's been in smaller stuff, and she's been around for quite a while. She's just really never had like the spotlight on her besides Resident Evil, but that's all she's known for. And it's like she never really gets to like kind of spread her acting wings a little bit. So I don't know if you know, they take more of I know Hellboy is more fantasy driven, but if they do kind of a darker take, since it is going to be kind of rated R, they're going to really go there versus the Ron Perlman Del Toro adaptations, then she could, you know, bring out a really kind of villainy type of performance where you're like, oh shit, Mila, like, yeah, that's what I'm liking it. You need to do more shit like this. So adding her to the cast, fantastic. The cast is getting stacked thus far, and the rumor is floating around that they're just going to call this Hellboy, which I think is a terrible mistake, because then you're going to confuse it with the Ron Perlman movie, which was called Hellboy. Call it something else, please, for the love of God. Do not just settle on Hellboy. If you want to reboot this thing, I get it. You want to start out with like fresh, it's the first one, but that's also the same fucking title as the Ron Perlman one, so change it up, please. It's not going to bug people if you call it Hellboy and the Blood Queen, or Hellboy the Blood Queen, or whatever you go with. So I just, that, no thank you. Mila Jovovich, I'm cool with. Yeah, so I'm just imagining her really just kind of having fun with the role and just kind of doing her thing. I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. I want to see David Harbour and whatever makeup or CGI they're going to use for him. I want to see how it compares to the Del Toro, because it's going to be completely different, by the way. Del Toro's imagination is just like, it's so out there and just so crazy, colorful, vibrant, and just ridiculously awesome. So I'm wondering like what this visual style is going to look like. Is it going to feel like that, or is it going to be, like I said, a little darker, a little bit lighter? I have no clue. But just adding more people to the cast, it just sounds like a good thing to me. So you know what? So another thing that is kind of good, kind of not, and I'll explain why, is the last story of the week, and is being reported. 20th Century Fox is making a film version of the Neuromancer, and it's going to be directed by Tim Miller, and this is the director of Deadpool, the hit success from last year. And just to give you guys a little bit of the plot summary, this is kind of like the plot summary on Wikipedia is like fucking 500 paragraphs long, but this is what I will read to you. Henry Dorset Case is a low-level hustler in the dystopian underworld of Chiba City, Japan. Once a talented computer hacker, Case was caught stealing from his employer. As a punishment for his theft, Case's central nervous system was damaged by a microtoxin, leaving him unable to access the global computer network in cyberspace, a virtual reality data space called the Matrix. Oh, gee, I wonder where we heard that from. Case is unemployable, suicidal, and apparently at the top of the hit list of a drug lord named Wage. And that's all I'll read. If you want to read more about it, go to Wikipedia. It sounds like it's going to be a mix of like a Ghost in the Shell and like the Matrix. But here's my problem with it. Not the story. The story sounds fine. If they pull it off, it could be very imaginative, very like heavy sci-fi action thriller. It could be a nice little a good time at the theater. The problem is Tim Miller. And I'm sorry to hurt all the Deadpool fans. I like the movie quite a bit. It's a good, entertaining movie, but the problem is most of that movie is improv, and most of that movie does look a little cheap. And I get it; they had a budgetary restriction, and Tim Miller did the best he could with it. This sounds like they're going to be putting a lot of money into this, and they're going to be putting him behind it. And I realize that this is a city of where, what have you done for me lately? So yeah, 20th Century Fox is going to go, hey Tim, you did a really good job with Deadpool for us. It made almost $800 million on the $30 million budget that we gave you. How would you like to tackle this? And I just feel like after watching Deadpool, I don't see how you can take that and create it into something like this. And I don't know, maybe he's going to blow us out of the water. But for me, Joel, I can't see him directing this like well, and that's only because I haven't seen anything else from him but a movie which was entertaining, heavy on improv, and very, I hate to use the word cheap, but it was, and that's because 20th Century Fox took a risk on it. I get it, but I just don't think that he's ready for the big leagues yet, if that makes any sense. So to tackle a movie that's probably going to be $100 million budget minimum, I can't see it. But the story sounds fascinating, and like I said, it sounds like Ghost in the Shell and The Matrix. So I'm all for that. I love sci-fi in general. It's one of my favorite genres. I just love exploring new worlds and just really kind of getting enrelished into the science fiction of whatever the hell they're trying to get across, whether it be technology or AI or just whatever. I'm all for it. So Joel, I want to know your take on this. Like, first of all, do you like the story synopsis, kind of like the little plot summary I read? Does it intrigue you? And do you think that Tim Miller is the right pick for this?
It does sound very intriguing. I love The Matrix. Ghost in the Shell, not so much. At least the new one. I didn't see the old one, but it does sound very much like a sort of a mix of the two. As for Tim Miller, from what I understand, he's an enormous sci-fi nerd. And he loves the novel. So that's what's interesting to me. That they made this choice. Probably, obviously, part of it's to capitalize on the fact that he made a big thing out of a small budget with Deadpool, which made just a little bit of money, but also that he was probably excited to do this just because of his history with the material. I happened to catch part of a live broadcast where a guy was talking about how he had interviewed or something Tim Miller, and found out that he was a huge fan of Neuromancer, and that he was just a big sci-fi nut in general. So that's what's got me excited. I think that somebody with passion for the material is certainly capable of, or certainly should be capable of taking it on. So I'm definitely excited on both ends.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, one of the sexiest things I ever see in a director or a writer or a producer is when they're passionate about something. Because if they're passionate about it and they can sell me on it, then I will go see it. But I do think making that transition, doing a middle-of-the-road budgeted film to doing this high-octane, probably going to be Blade Runner-esque type of movie where it's going to be fucking expensive and it's going to be a daunting project, I feel like at this point, I could change my mind when I see a trailer or images. I just feel like it's a little bit too much for him. But that, like I said, it's also my fault because I haven't seen really anything else he's done. So, but hey, if he's passionate about it, guess what? We can be passionate about it too. So that will do it for the news this week. Joel, what was your favorite piece of little movie tidbit that's sprinkled throughout the interwebs?
Oh, easily Ad Astra. The casting news there is very exciting. The whole project's exciting. So I'm most excited for that.
And I will not agree with you, and I will do the Malignant story because I love me some James Wan, and that story sounds fucking awesome. Can you imagine, Joel, if you woke up and you found a lump and you're like, oh, well, god damn it, I got a tumor, and then you go to the doctor and you're like, oh my god, it's a fucking alien parasite, fuck! And you're like, oh shit, and like you just start running out of the hospital, like, screaming bloody murder, and you're trying to like cut it out of you, and like the alien's like latched onto your nervous system, you can't really do anything, it's controlling you. Oh my god, Joel, we need to write this shit down. Anyways, that is it for the news, guys. Let us know what you thought of the news stories down below. Let's get into some trailers this week because there were 4 of them that dropped. I know, there was a lot to pick from. There's 4 of them that dropped. Trust me, it was really hard. And we're going to be talking about them right now. So I'm going to start off with Mother. And I told Joel, every time we mention this movie, I'm going to say it like that. So Mother is directed by Darren Aronofsky, stars Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. We talked about the teaser last week. There was enough there to talk about. Now that we got the full-length trailer, holy fucking shitballs, Joel. You better strap in, son, because this is going to be a complete mindfuck. I am totally down for it. The best way to describe this is like paranoia and like Twilight Zone type of material, like in the hands of Darren Aronofsky. And it's like, oh my god, we're going to be in for such a treat. I mean, in the teaser, we didn't really know much of the story. So the story basic setup is this. Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence, which makes no sense, by the way, because I think Javier Bardem is like 20 plus years older than her. Anyways, they are a couple, which I think the age thing was actually on purpose. Now I'll get to that, my theories, in just a second. But anyways, they're together, they're married or whatever, and Jennifer Lawrence is kind of she's kind of paranoid about certain things. It seems like, Javier Bardem is like the kind of like calm straight man out of the two, so it kind of works really well as a pairing. Now there is a man that comes through the door, played by Ed Harris, and then of course a female that is played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and they come in to stay with them. They have a picture of Javier Bardem, so it really makes Jennifer Lawrence paranoid. Like, why are they here? Do you know them? And then we get like a brief glimpse of like Ed Harris like almost fucking fingering Michelle Pfeiffer on a bed, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And of course, the blood coming in from the light bulb was really cool. Yes, fucking yes. I love the music that accompanied the trailer. It made it really creepy and eerie. I love the scratching of the strings on the instrument to introduce Darren Aronofsky and his filmography. I thought that was oh man, it makes my hair stand up every single time I watched it. It played in front of Annabelle Creations, so it was really cool to see it on the big screen. Yeah, I really like it. It's just the right amount, Joel, to where we know the basis of the story, but he's not giving anything away. And that's what the cool thing about Aronofsky. He's one of those filmmakers that, since his company is releasing it, I will guarantee you when he signed the distribution deal with Paramount, he told Paramount, I want final cut in my contract, I want trailer edit in my contract, and I will guarantee you he has taken over this trailer, because this seems like a total Aronofsky like edit. Like I said, it doesn't reveal too much. It's just enough to get you into the kind of atmosphere and mood of the film, which, like I said, is very creepy and eerie. Now, my theory, Joel, I don't know what you're thinking, but these two people come into the house, and obviously they know of Javier Bardem from the trailer. There's a picture of him in their suitcase, according to Jennifer Lawrence. I'm thinking, I don't even think that Javier Bardem and her are married in the movie. I think that Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer are her parents, and it's almost going to be probably like a therapy session for her, because maybe of something that happened in her past. I have no clue. Maybe she's got mental issues and they're trying to help her. I have no clue, Joel. That's just kind of like my theory, because the age difference, like I said, there is a purpose, because Jennifer Lawrence, I don't know if people know this, but she's actually Joel and I's age, like in real life. She's like 27, 28 or whatever. So and Javier Bardem is almost as old as my dad, so it's like there's something to be said there with the age difference. But I don't want to talk about any more theories. I just want to watch it at this point, Joel, because the trailer was so fucking awesome. Did you like this full-length trailer? Did you think it showed just enough to get you excited?
It's certainly an intriguing trailer. Some aspect of it feels like it's... this is going to sound weird, but it feels like it's going to be one of those movies that's weirdly underwhelming when we finally see it. But as far as setting up a mystery, it certainly succeeds at that, because it's a well-cut trailer. It's Darren Aronofsky, so obviously I'm excited on that basis. And we basically got like a month from tomorrow night probably is when we'll be seeing this, and or I'll be seeing this. And yeah, I mean it's certainly a very big contender for one of my more anticipated of this next few couple of months, probably like September, October, arena, and of the major festival circuit, area. And to all the people who are like griping about this trailer because it has Jennifer Lawrence in it, just shut up. You're the worst kind of person. But other than that, it looks great, and I'm certainly excited on the basis of this weird mystery that I have a feeling that there's going to be something like much of it is in somebody's head, but that's the feeling I get. But again, we don't want to get into theories on the show, but it certainly looks intriguing. We shall see. I like the cast: Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, and Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence. That's some great star power all over the place.
Yeah, and just to touch upon with what you said with people getting sick of Jennifer Lawrence, I think she did the appropriate thing, because after Passengers, it did decent at the box office. I'm not saying it was a flop, because it actually, I think, barely made them a little bit of profit with Sony. That was the last thing she did. So her taking this humongous break in between everything was smart, because she was starting to get a little fatigued with me, and I was just tired of seeing her everywhere. But the fact that she kind of took a break a little bit, she's going to come back, and she's doing this one, and kind of like the movie Atomic Blonde with Red Sparrow or whatever it's called. So she took a little bit of breather. Now she's kind of coming back and doing these smaller indie films to kind of show people, hey, I'm still a good actress. I got a little carried away, but I'm still good though. Because last year was pretty rough for her, with good old Apocalypse, where she didn't give a fuck, and then Passengers, where I saw she cared, but the movie was just so bland overall. It's I was sick and tired of seeing her, and of course her antics off screen don't really entice me to see her either. So this was the right move for her. I'm excited to like you said, just let her show the haters up, if you will. So I'm looking forward to Mother. But there is something that we're not looking forward to. Joel, do you remember that good old game where we played when we were infants, like children, before we had our brain developed, where we would sit in a circle and there'd be a kid that would touch his greasy, slimy fruit roll-up hands on our shoulders, and he would say duck, and they would go around the circle, and whoever was tapped to say goose would have to stand up and chase the kid around. It was so fucking fun. Weren't we just a delight as children? Joel, there's a movie trailer with that exact title. Do you care to explain to us how the apocalypse will start on planet Earth?
It will start on April 20th, 2018.
Perfect.
So on 4/20. All right. So I gotta admit something. So I watched this trailer in front of the Nut Job 2 on Thursday. Then, whenever the notes came around this morning, my good old co-host over there, it had it listed, and I was like, Duck, Duck, Goose. Okay, I saw that trailer in front of Nut Job 2, but I can't remember anything about it. Okay, so I parked at work a little bit early, about 20 minutes early today, just because I left early enough. Anyway, I got there 20 minutes early, and I sat in my car, and I decided, you know what, I've got 2 trailers to watch, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I watched the other 2 trailers that we're going to get to later, and then I was like, okay, but wait a minute, I don't remember what Duck Duck Goose is about. So I went and watched the trailer again. Now, fast forward to after we started recording this episode, okay, and I've worked 7 hours during a long, empty shift, and I come upon the fact that I'm going to have to talk about Duck Duck, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I've watched this trailer twice, and I can't remember what it was about.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to just read the single sentence that IMDb has, and then I'm just going to say a few things about the trailer. It says, a bachelor goose must form a bonding with 2 lost ducklings as they journey south. So basically, this is a theatrically released children's lesson movie kind of thing. You know, like the kind of things that you would find in the Netflix kids section that nobody's ever heard of, and that probably wasn't in theaters and is 45 minutes long or something, and you just pass over it and you're like, okay, I'm so sorry that children have to watch. This is basically an 82, and it's actually confirmed. The length of the movie is already confirmed. It's an 82-minute version of that. And it looks so lame. Oh my gosh. This looks so bad, guys. It just, it's one of those where you can hear the physical pain in the narrator's voice when he has to make a pun involving the F word. I mean, it's just, oh goodness. I have to regroup. I have to let my mind regroup for a second. So
Well,
I'm just gonna.
since Joel's brain is into mush. I guess I'll just put in my 2 cents. Yeah, the animation, it's very cheap, but you know what's really weird is that, in some of the shots it didn't look half bad. It looks like one of those animated movies that you take your kids to, and you're like, wow, that was really great for my kids, and then you forget about it on the ride home. I watched it twice myself, and I still can't tell you what the story's about. I believe it's like some fucking goose taking care of a duck, like two ducklings, and they get into hijinks ensue. It's made by Toonbox, which I told Joel before we recorded is that it sounds like the cheapest animation studio to ever grace us with its presence. Yeah, there's really nothing more to say. This is for children, and children will go see it. It will turn a profit because it probably costs like $5 to make since they hired Jim Gaffigan to play the main character. God help you. I like Jim Gaffigan fine in stand-up, but when he's headlining your animated movie, you got problems, kid. And of course, it also has Zendaya from good old Spider-Man Homecoming, because obviously, since that movie blew up, they're just like, well, this movie's been on the fucking shelf for 20 years. Like, she's in this now. Let's capitalize on this. Yuck, yuck, yuck. So, yeah.
In that accent, too. It's crazy.
It's, yeah. Listen, you're going to take your kids to go see it. You're going to regret it. And when you come home, you're going to start yelling at your spouse, and you guys are going to have, like, really, like, awesome makeup sex, and, like, that's how your day's going to go. And then your child's going to be really confused as to why you were so happy when you took them to the movie, then you got so pissed off, and then you yelled at your spouse, and then you guys were hate-fucking each other, and then your kids are just like, what was that, Mommy? And you're like, don't worry, little Jimmy boy, everything's all fine now. I got a good old case of the Dickin, and now I don't have to talk about Duck, Duck, Goose ever again.
What a specific prediction.
Hey, listen, that's what I try to do. Like, I knew we weren't going to really talk about the trailer. I just wanted to address it and bring it up into the zeitgeist, into public conversation, and then, of course, make that really terrible joke. And this is why I'm single, everyone. All right, so
I will tell people that I'm probably going to review this because I've now watched all 3 movies up until this point that Toonbox and Open Road have collaborated on, which are both of the Nutjob movies. I'll get into those, later. And then Spark of Space Tale from earlier this year, which I watched over the week, and as blah as it was, it's their best. And it's just this really like they're really like low rent, lo-fi, very bland, not very adventurous. And this certainly seems in their wheelhouse in terms of all of that. So I'm gonna see it. And
so I want everyone to remember this moment, remember this recording at this exact moment where Joel said, I'm probably going to review this. So when October comes around and I review and talk about Jigsaw, I don't want to hear it, Joel. I don't want to hear your shit as to like, oh, why are you watching these crap movies? You are suffering through these shitty ass kids movies. I do not want to fucking hear it. So there's that. That movie needs to die. Joel's gonna probably die on April 18th next year. So we will get to his funeral proceedings next year. So for the next trailer, kind of the middle of the road, why was this made type of deal with Patrick Stewart wearing pubes on his head, is called The Wild Wedding. And this one stars Patrick Stewart with a terrible hair wig, Glenn Close and John Malkovich. That was my terrible impression. Congratulations, you can. I will retire now. So, the main premise is basically of something of a Lifetime movie with just more sex. Literally, this 2.5-minute trailer has probably way more sex scenes than I was even anticipating. I was like, okay. So the basic thing is that Patrick Stewart and Glenn Close are getting married. John Malkovich is the father of Glenn Close's children. Hijinks ensue. They are meeting for wedding weekend, and everyone's fucking everywhere. And I'm not even, that's not a hyperbole. Everyone's fucking like in the garden, closets, beds, probably in a car somewhere in the movie, probably on top of the main characters. I mean, it's going to get freaky deaky apparently from the trailer, so I really don't care about it. But I wanted to bring it up because it's got some pretty high class actors in it. It's like I have a theory, Joel, that after Patrick Stewart got done filming Logan, probably last year at some point, that he was like, I'm going to get an Oscar for this. My performance was so good that I'm going to go ahead and just do literal voice acting of poop characters and also being in poop movies like this. I think he just doesn't care at this point, and he was just like, I'm gonna get a win from Logan. This is it. This is the pinnacle of my career. Now I'm gonna go downhill, literally playing a pile of poop character and being in movies like this. I didn't care. It's one of those things where I felt sorry for all three of them, especially the hair wig that had to be on poor Patrick Stewart's head. I felt sorry for it the most. But it's one of those like basic like wedding type of hijinks and suit type of movies, and I don't mind when movies repeat premises. I really don't, but you got to bring something fresh into it. The only thing fresh they brought into it is that Glenn Close's last name is Wild, like with an E. She's an actress, and so they're like, oh, well, it's the Wild Wedding, and we're going to have like raunchy shit in it. So the Wild Wedding actually makes sense. Thank you, producers of the Wild Wedding. Yeah, no thank you. I'm good. Joel, what did you think of this trailer?
Once again, in that accent too. So we differ on this one. I think it looks really funny and charming. But whatever. I mean, I totally get that. It's not my favorite trailer of the week. We're about to get to that one, but it looks really funny and charming. I doubt I'll run out to it. But if it's playing in theaters, this seems to be one of those things that either it's going to play in theaters or it's going to be one of those that like opens in a few theaters and also goes on iTunes at the same day or something. And either way, I might check it out, but it's not something I'll like clear my schedule for. But I do think it looks funny, and the sight of Patrick Stewart with hair on his head is odd.
Yes, it is.
a lot of hair, not just Logan hair. A lot of hair, like a full head of hair. I feel like they accidentally, in the process of making the movie, switched him with John Malkovich, and then just nobody said anything, because I feel like John Malkovich, that hair on John Malkovich's head actually would look more at home, even though they're both bald or shaved, I guess. It's just weird, but I don't know. I totally get your reaction, though. It's one of those things where with comedy stuff, it either hits or doesn't. For me, it did, but I totally understand that it didn't for you. All right, so, but I think that we can agree that this last trailer, which is also a comedy, hit a lot.
Oh, no, I just want everyone, like, I'm going to set it up like this, and I'm going to let Joel carry it over for the touchdown. Listen, I was looking forward to the Mother trailer. I was excited for it. I watched it. Didn't let my hopes down. It was absolutely amazing. This one, I saw drop in my YouTube feed over and over again. I was like, okay, if a lot of these channels are picking it up, it must be a pretty prominent trailer. I watched it, and I laughed my fucking ass off, and I can tell you this, Joel, and I will tell everyone to the world, Joel, if we get an invite to this, we're fucking going to this, because this looks like a hoot and holler and good time, and it looks like Arrested Development in foreign policy.
Yeah. Okay, so this one is called The Death of Stalin, and it is from Armando Iannucci, who created, he's most prominently known for creating Veep, or co-creating Veep, which is of course, that show with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and he also did In the Loop, both the series and the movie of that. I haven't seen any of those things, but I definitely need to, and I'm going to go ahead and probably like rent In the Loop at work. I think we have a copy somewhere, and this movie looks absolutely hysterical. It's basically Stalin has died, and they're kind of looking at this whole situation from the PR standpoint, and looking to kind of keep the public at bay, and it all looks absolutely hilarious. It's got a great cast. It's got oh my gosh, who's in this? Jeffrey Tambor, Jason Isaacs, Andrea Riseborough,
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi. Oh my gosh, just Everything about this trailer worked. I can't wait for this. I am so reviewing it. I cannot wait. Give it to me now. Give it to me, Chase.
I will definitely give it to you because this is one of those weird cases where, like, when Joel and I watch trailers for you guys, like, most of them, especially now that we're getting into the fall, they're like the very somber, hard-hitting dramas that are probably going to win some Oscars. And then they throw in something like this, and it just completely is refreshing, and it's exciting, and, like, just the whole demeanor about it. It's basically like if you combined Arrested Development, Veep, and put it into the atmosphere of Stalin and how the PR system works over there. It was so unexpected because I thought it was a drama. I thought it was a drama at first, and so when I clicked on it, I was like, okay, let's see how it is. And it starts out, kind of serious, and then, like, once the death happens in the trailer, it starts going to shit, and I'm just like, this is enjoyable. Like, I just enjoyed everyone bickering, like, what do we fucking do? Like, it's just it's so great. That is definitely my favorite.
It also looks. Oh yeah, it's easily my favorite. I mean, as good as the Mother trailer is, this beats it. And it also looks really pointed and very smart. And I have a feeling that I've heard a lot of people say that Iannucci's stuff is like this, where it's incredibly pointed politically, very partisan, but obviously, but very pointed and very smart and not so totally overbearing, but it's super funny, and so I'm really excited. It's just, I laughed throughout the trailer like you did. It's just so funny. But yeah, so that's the last trailer. Clearly both of our favorites was the death of Stalin. So Chase, I want you to. Oh no, I'm going to go ahead and start, aren't I?
You're going to start, but first I have to prep you up for your casket as you get as you die while talking about this. So, all right, so we're going to get into our movie reviews, guys, and we try to keep I try to keep the new section, the trailer section, short. We got 3 coming at you guys. One of which is an independent film. One was the kind of big spectacle for the weekend, and one of them will make you want to castrate yourself. I wonder which one's which. So. Now, I told Joel, I said, probably only going to see one of them this weekend. He's like, okay, which one? I was like, I'll probably go see Annabelle. He's like, okay. I'll see The Glass Castle. I was like, all right, that's a good pick. Brie Larson's in it, Woody Harrelson. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. And then Joel was like, wait, I want to do one more. I was like, well, Joel, I mean, did you see Wind River? Like, I wouldn't mind talking about Wind River, an actual film with a story. And you're like, no, fam. I don't want to talk about that. I want to go basically have the equivalent to go into a toxic waste dump and expose myself to gamma radiation. And I want to see the Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature. And so I was the only response I said, and Joel can back me up on this because I will let you guys a little insight into what our text conversations are like. When he said, that's the one I want to do, I said, well, Joel, I have to ask you then, are you nutty by nature then? And then he just said, oh, kill me now, and then he proceeded to go see the movie. So Joel will be doing that one first, and then, of course, I will be doing Annabelle Creation, and then we'll cap it off with the independent film that Joel also saw. So Joel's going to be doing 2 of them, and we're going to start out with probably, a questionable one first and get out of the way. So, Joel, the floor is yours. What did you think about the terrible title for a kids' film?
It's a masterpiece. No. All right. So, of course, this is the sequel to 2014's The Nut Job, which I saw and don't remember any of. In fact, so this is funny. I read somewhere, I think it might have been on Letterboxd or something, somebody's review where they said that it wasn't even like keeping in line with the end of the first movie. And I was just thinking, I was like, I don't remember the end of the first movie. So I had to go read it. I definitely saw the movie, but I think it was a busy month or something. And I'm pretty sure I reviewed it. I can't remember. But yeah, so this is the sequel, and it's completely useless it's a useless sequel to a useless movie. This one, basically the first movie was about the squirrel named Surly, who really, 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 really likes nuts. And at the end of the first movie, they have happened upon this nut shop that, at the end of the first movie, is shut down. So of course, all the nuts are left in the basement, which means that Surly and his friends are able to, eat the nuts to their heart's content. So that's where the second one finds them. But his kind of sort of love interest, Andy. Oh, Surly is voiced by Will Arnett, by the way. Clearly not the better voice work this year for him. But anyway, Andy, voiced by Katherine Heigl, of all people, really wants everybody to learn how to find their own food, like on on the ground and stuff, rather than just having it handed to them. Even though that makes no sense whatsoever, she believes that because they're pack animals, they should do that. So meanwhile, there's this mayor who is kind of evil. He's been able to win his place by like illegal contributions and all that. Hint, hint. I wonder who it sounds like. And he wants to wipe out the park where all the squirrels and animals live, and put an amusement park there, which is actually exactly what he does. It's unexpected to me, because I thought that the movie would be about their journey to try to avoid it, but actually he does that. He rips it all up, and so they're having to, I guess, defeat him. I have no idea what point this movie is trying to make beyond the obvious, this is an environmental message thing. But it's really lazy, lackadaisical. It's got animation that's very indistinctive in this, age of Pixar and DreamWorks, and even Blue Sky has higher quality. And I just there's no use for this movie. The few positives, there is one scene where we learn that, well, first of all, we learn that Surly's parents' fate is not really known, and then we kind of sort of learn it in a flashback, and the flashback works, but that's basically the only scene that works here, and it's because there's actual emotion involved. We get the sense that because it happened when Surly was just a kid, so it's kind of bad for the parents. That's basically the only thing that works here. Otherwise, it's not a total insult to every sensibility or anything. It's just kind of useless and bland, and maybe a little bit less than that, I guess. It's very slapdash, hastily thrown together kind of thing, even though it's been 3 years. And the voice work's all just whatever. Jackie Chan shows up as a mouse called Mr. Fang to say, and I quote, "I'm a weapon of mouse destruction." And then it's weird because he's credited as a special appearance, and his appearance accomplishes absolutely nothing in the plot until the end. So, and even in the end, it's just like, okay, whatever. But it's very frantic. Kids will probably, very small kids will probably like the bright colors, but really we should treat kids as more intelligent than this, because we've got a lot of good kids movies, floating around, and Toonbox does not make them, because the first one was lame. This one is just whatever, maybe an inch better, but whatever. That's basically my full thoughts, honestly. I don't have many, obviously don't have any positives. I could list the negatives, but it's useless. It's just kind of there. And so I'm going to give The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature, a D+.
Joel, I have two questions for you. One, did it pain you to actually say the full title and give it an actual grade of film criticism? And two, does it disturb you that the title of a kids' film this weekend was occupied by a children's movie and probably the second-hand job that a prostitute gave somewhere in Dallas? So, listen, it's one of those things where, when the trailer dropped, I was like, wow, did the first one actually do that well? And believe it or not,
it did.
Yeah, it's really shocking. It actually did very well. And so, because I remember when it came out, I was working at, I believe I was working at the theater at the time. And so, or if I didn't, I sure as fuck remember it. It came and it went. I was like, oh, that was an interesting little kids film. I guess it did okay business, right? And you look online, like, okay, I guess it did a little better than I thought it would. So, thank you, Joel, for taking the bullet this week and watching Nut Job 2.
Yeah, it's interesting because it had a $42.8 million budget. The first one did. I don't know where all that went, but anyway, and then it made 120.9. So clearly, it was something that people were interested in, which is surprising considering that it doesn't belong to a franchise, or it didn't at that point belong to a franchise. It was an original title, and of course now it's not. But the second one had a $40 million budget. So I mean, money's going into the making of these, and I'm sure that they'll try to do a third one.
I'm sure they will. Like it, because the stats are, Joel's right. It costs $42 million to make, and you guys know the rule. You double the budget, you got to add the PA and marketing. So I'm gonna say probably around 90, 95-ish that they had to break even. It made 120 worldwide, so it did pretty good business for them, and that was probably something they didn't even expect.
Which is people that are getting work. That's fine. I always respect animators, whatever they work on, and that's why usually I can't go much lower with animated movies unless it's just like a really special circumstance, because I do recognize the work that people put in. Maybe sometimes you don't have people in this company maybe as talented as the people at Pixar, but nevertheless they do put hours and hours and months of work in.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly why I do not give the Transformers movies Fs, because those animators work their asses off. So
I mean, stuff like
totally
big visual effects that work. I mean, it's hard to totally count against them with the stuff in the story and all that. I mean, it's just a blah movie. So, but I don't.
And the thing is, like, I commend Will Arnett quite a bit, because the guy's not hurting for money. The guy has like 3 Netflix shows that he's currently on. He's the voice of Lego Batman. He's doing just fine money-wise. I will guarantee you that there's 2 options. He was either bound by a contract to come back and do this, or 2, he wanted to come back because he has kids of his own. And it's nice to actually have, like, do work for your kids and not be BoJack Horseman and make your kids like super depressed. So, listen, I like BoJack Horseman to death, but like that's an adult animation. Like that's not for children at all. So, yeah, and he's really good.
You mentioned Patrick Stewart, doing the poop emoji, and he was actually in Spark of Space Tale. He had a small role in that, and he mentioned, I think a couple years ago when he did that Legends of Oz movie, that he does this stuff for his grandkids, and you can't blame him. With lo-fi stuff like this, there's not huge stakes. Nobody's super worried that the Nut Job 2 is bad, for instance. But it's just, it offers some work for some people who probably need the money, and it makes it because people are seeing them. So
yeah, and I will say this about Will Arnett: regardless of what movie or show he's voicing his, lending his voice to, he's really good at voice acting. When you think about everything he's done, whether it be on TV or in the movies, not only is he a funny dude in person and like he's got a great presence comedically, he's really talented at voice acting. Like I'm telling you guys, BoJack Horseman is one of my favorite things Netflix has put their name on, and every single time when you watch that show, when you watch an episode, you do not hear Will Arnett. You just look at this horse and you believe everything that he's saying, because he's so good at line deliveries in a voice booth, and he's really talented at voice acting. Like he's really good at Lego Batman, BoJack Horseman. Like the guy is just he's fucking insane. Like he knows how to work it, and good for him. Now his children with Amy Poehler can watch something. I know they're not together anymore, but it's nice to do stuff for your kids. So what's not kid friendly, Joel, is taking your kid to a fucking movie that will scare the shit out of you and cause you to have nightmares. That would be Annabelle Creation. Now, a little backstory for you guys. I actually never saw the first Annabelle. Joel has seen it. So I went into this movie with the same line of thinking as I did with the second Ouija movie that came out last year, where I didn't see the first one. I heard great things about the sequel or prequel or whatever, and I proceeded to go see it, the Ouija movie and Origin of Evil, and I actually really dug it. Director Mike Flanagan did that, and it actually was a pretty decent little possession horror film. It wasn't anything like groundbreaking or whatever, but it was a nice theater-going experience. And guess what? Annabelle Creation is the exact same reaction, where it was like, that was a nice little horror experience, and I have some really great positives about it. I have some nitpicky negatives and whatnot, but I think overall, it's one of those things to where, like, I was really opposed of, like, James Wan and Warner Brothers wanting to do, like, this kind of, like, Conjuring universe type of deal where they have movies that are, you know, focusing on certain characters or certain, you know, items of possession and have it all linked to the Conjuring films. I was totally opposed to that, but, you know, if they make movies like this, I'm fine with it. So, all right, so let's get real and break this down. I'm going to say I liked it. My grade's not going to reflect, like, a like, but I still think it's a decent little film. Like, if you were hankering for a horror film, you should definitely... I still recommend it, but I'm not going to, like, you know, praise it. But before I get into the movie, Joel, I was telling Joel this yesterday. There was something floating around online. Did you see that? Pun.
Oh, boy.
Floating. Pun. There was something floating around on the internet where there was a 4-minute preview of It right before Annabelle creation, which makes total sense to me if the rumor was true, because Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema also did It. So it's great promotion. Why not? So I go see it, and I excuse me, sit down. I see a bunch of trailers. I'm like, all right, cool. I've seen all these. And then Stephen King comes on the screen, and he says, this adaptation of It is finally on the big screen. Is one of my personal works. So here's a exclusive sneak peek. I was like, oh, shit, the rumors are true. Which 4-minute scene are they going to show? And they show the sewer scene. And it's basically, if you read the book or if you've seen the miniseries or even the trailer of this new one, it's not really spoiling much. It's at the beginning of the movie where Georgie, one of the boys, pretty much the demise of Pennywise, puts his little paper boat in the water in the street, and it carries off into the sewer. He tries to grab it, and Pennywise comes up and whatnot. And we saw that scene in the trailer, and Pennywise says one line, and then we move on to the next scene. So the scene is basically just him and Georgie talking, and I got to see a little bit more of what. Oh fuck! What? Oh, Joel, I forgot. Which Skarsgård is it?
Bill Skarsgård.
Bill. Excuse me. Yeah. So Bill Skarsgård comes up as Pennywise, and he's talking with Georgie, and I don't. I'm not going to make any projections, Joel, but I will tell you this: his accent, his demeanor, his eyes, the way he talked, the way he moved his hands, was perfect. He had, like, that balance of humor, like terror, and, like, just downright straight up, like, serial killer vibes. Like, it was like a mix of all three where, like, you're like, he's not too bad. He's, like, making jokes, and, you know, he's kind of awkward with humor, but then, like, oh shit, no, he wants to eat this fucking kid. So I got to see a little bit of an extended scene for it, and I actually really liked it. Bill Skarsgård, man, if the Academy's open to it, I'm not going to say anything right now, but that 4-minute scene, if that's the way he's going to be in the movie, I mean, Heath Ledger did it, and he wore makeup, he wore clown makeup. I'm not going to say anything, but, you know, Bill Skarsgård, supporting actor, that's all I'll say. It was really good. It was convincing. I absolutely loved it. So that was a nice precursor to the movie. And I was already jazzed for the movie at that point. So when you saw that scene, it was like, oh shit, like, now I can't fucking wait for it. All right, so this one is directed by David Sandberg, who actually directed Lights Out from last year, which I actually thought was fine. It was a good concept. I saw the short film online, and it creeped the fuck out of me. I still think it's a really good short film. It does not lend itself to a feature film. I thought they kind of padded that out, kind of stretched it out. And the end of the film with that twist, pointless, just stop it. No. So I wasn't really looking forward to this because of his past work. But when I saw the trailer and I still and I realized that James Wan is still involved with these movies, I got a little bit more excited. And so, not gonna lie, this movie does kind of start off a bit rocky, and it's kind of like a basic horror setup and whatnot. You know. Someone's making the Annabelle doll, something happens, possession, souls going into dolls and bodies and demons and whatnot, and so kind of a rough start, but as the movie kind of kept going and the train of this movie just kind of kept chugging along, I really got invested to it. I'm not saying it's like an Oscar-winning movie. It's not, something that's going to, be remembered for years to come, but as in that moment for that 2.5 hour experience, not 2.5 hours, 2 hour experience, I was really into it, and there was some creepy imagery to where I was like, David Sandberg, this is what I wanted you to do in Lights Out. Yes, you had some interesting shot compositions and some interesting cinematography in that movie that kind of elicit the fear of the unknown. I get that, and I realize what you were doing. But James Wan, I think, got a little bit more influence on him with this one, because there were some shots in here that reminded me of The Conjuring, where what James Wan does best, and what David Sandberg does pretty well in this movie as well, is utilize editing techniques and cinematography to elicit new scares. Because I get sick and tired of like PG-13 horror films that aren't really creative with their scares, and they just use loud music or sound effects to like really shake you out of your seat. Now, yes, this movie has that, and I'll get to that into a second, but most of the scares in this film are very creative. They're compositioned so well that it was effective on me. So I got to give David props for the utilization of interesting horror techniques with the cinematography and editing, because it was really effective, and the horror was definitely there. A couple more positives I really enjoyed. I enjoyed all the actresses in the film. Some of them didn't really get too many lines, so it was kind of pointless for them to be there, but whatever. But the main two that you focus on, they did a very good job. Now, one of them is actually, I forgot her name, but she was also in Ouija Origin of Evil, which is really funny and ironic, but she's really good. And the other main little girl who's on crutches in the film, she does a really good job, and their back and forth is really natural. Nothing really felt forced, and the acting actually overall was actually not bad. It was actually really enjoyable to watch, because that's the one thing with Lights Out from last year, was that the acting wasn't terrible. It was just more of like the story and how the story was handled, especially towards the end, and your film's got to end very well for it to be memorable. And so and this film definitely does that, I will tell you that, but that's all I'll say about the ending. But a couple more positives, just like I said, some of the imagery, man, it reminded me of like the good old like Insidious days and the Conjuring days, where it really was just so inventive, and it got under your skin and just crept you out in the moment. And I was like, oh fuck yes, like I get off on that shit, Joel. I love it when horror films just try something new with the interpretation of fear and terror. I love that. I love that rush that you get while watching these films, and you totally get that for sure. And one of the other positives I will say before I get into kind of the things that kind of hold it back just a hair for me is the sound design and the sound effects. What David Sandberg does very well, and he did this in Lights Out, he utilizes... I'm not going to say quiet, but he utilizes the environment to its advantage, and he doesn't overdo it. He does it as if it was real. Like what you were watching is what real characters would sound like, as if they were going through a room or a house very quietly. You're only going to hear maybe a couple creaks from the floor, and that's it. Maybe they're breathing. So he utilizes this kind of like very, very airy sound design, which is very effective in some scenes, because when it's like kind of like half lit room, you're like, well, fuck, where is this thing gonna come busting out at and scare the shit out of me? It works really well. So the sound design is very minimal but very effective, and so is the sound effects, and the music is very good too. And so it's definitely a good horror film to go see. I won't go anywhere beyond that in terms of grades or anything, but it's a good horror film. Now, some of the things that kind of hold it back a little bit is, not gonna lie, it pretty much reminded me of Ouija Origin of Evil, and it's not because of the same little girl that acted in it. It's because it had like the same vibe to it. It was set in a different time period in the past. It kind of had like the same tone to it. I'm not saying it was a bad film. It's just like, it didn't do anything different with the possession genre. So James Wan, if you're listening to us, which you are, if you are, fuck, please come on to the podcast. But I love you, sir. But no, if you're going to continue to do these movies in the Conjuring universe, I don't mind, but they have to be a little bit more different in the possession game. Not the way you film it or the way you execute it, because, like I said, those are always really well done, but the story is kind of vapid, and it doesn't really provide much for the backstory of Annabelle, it's just like, okay, I expected that to happen type of deal. It's a simple possession type of movie, so that wasn't really anything that was, breaking grounds in the genre or whatever. It was serviceable. It's a serviceable story, but like I said, the overall direction and the terror of the film are what make it, not the actual story. So, I just wanted to announce that, but I'll give it a pass on that. The jump scares. Some of them, false jump scares, piss me off. I absolutely hate them when they happen, because they know what they're doing. The filmmakers know what they're doing. The studios know what they're doing. Stop it. There are some shots that require no sound effects, and that's what makes it creepy. Those are the shots and those are the sequences that really get under my skin in the best way possible. When you are purposely just walking into a room, bumping into a chair, the camera whipping over and a character going, oh, whoops, sorry. Like, I hate that shit. Like, stop doing false jump scares. So there was a little bit too much for my liking, which is very disappointing, knowing that, like, the first Annabelle and this one are both rated R, and it's like, once we get into that R-rated status, can we please not revert to PG-13 tactics, for the love of God? So, yeah, the jump scares a little bit overbearing sometimes, and just stop it. Some of them were, like I said, effective, but some of them were like, yo, we gotta calm that down. And the last kind of like a negative-ish thing, kind of overall thoughts on my grade, the CGI was a little bit questionable in some scenes. It kind of, I hate to say this, but it reminded me of the CGI in The Bye-Bye Man. The Bye-Bye Man had some of the worst CGI I've seen all year, and it had a dog that looked like it was covered in like chewed up bits of steak meat. It was gross. It looked just, it wasn't even frightening. It just, the CGI kind of poked out a little bit. So some of the shots had questionable CGI, but for the most part, they used a lot of practical, in-camera stuff to the best that they can. And I'm telling you, there's a couple of them that are like, dude, if I fucking see that in real life, I'm gonna punch it in the face, and I ain't gonna let no demon touch me. So, but yeah, the CGI a little questionable, whatever. But as a horror film, it's not bad. I actually liked it. Now, I'm not going to give it a high grade, but I'm going to give it the same reaction that I gave Ouija Origin of Evil last year. And believe it or not, I've heard terrible things from the first one. But the way this one ends, it's a prequel to the first one, so you know how it ends. It's going to link up to the first one. I mean, I kind of liked the ending. It was kind of creepy and cool, and I was like, oh shit, I kind of want to watch the first one now. So, yeah, no, as a standalone horror film, I thought it was pretty well done. David Sandberg really kind of impressed me here versus Lights Out. Really effective uses of the James Wan horror cinematography and editing techniques that are really effective. Some of my favorite imagery of this year, definitely, if I could pick some shots, some favorite shots of the year so far, there's a couple in here for sure that really just creep me the fuck out. So that was effective. The performances were pretty well done, especially since most of them were kids. And I'm glad they went with the R rating, just like with the first one. So thank you, Warner Brothers, for not sacrificing anything. Yeah, continue to make these movies in this universe, because I think it could be one of those cinematic universes that, did we ask for it? No, but I'm not gonna be offended by it or anything. So I'm gonna give Annabelle Creation a solid, very strong, because I can't get it into the B's. I'm gonna give it a C+. It's a very well done horror film, very just slightly above average. But I do, to be honest with you, I do think the story kind of, like I said, is so basic that it just kind of falls in the average category. But that plus uptick is because of the creativity behind the team that were involved in making this. So that is my overall thoughts on Annabelle Creation, and that 4-minute plus scene from It was definitely a added nice little whipped cream bonus on the Sunday. So that is my thoughts on that one, Joel. So after hearing that, are you more enticed to see it, or are you just kind of like, yeah, I'll wait until rental and I'll play it in the background when I'm like about to fall asleep?
I'll certainly rent it. I don't super duper care, and you didn't fully convince me to like run out and see this in theaters, but I'll certainly rent it. I actually still haven't seen Ouija 2, the one from last year, because it's funny because the first Ouija was super unpopular, and Annabelle wasn't super popular, but it was more popular, and I preferred Ouija. I thought that Annabelle was completely useless, poorly performed, and then it just so this just didn't entice me a whole lot.
Joel, I will say that for a movie in this specific type of category, think about it. This is a prequel to a prequel that was a spin-off of a movie, and it was actually not bad. Like, it's just crazy when that minute subcategory is actually, like, not bad. So it's crazy. But
yeah,
to be honest with you, Joel, go watch it. See the first 4 minutes of it, that 4-minute sequence, and leave. I mean, you could do that if you want. I'm not going to dog you on it.
I'm more interested in just seeing all of it at one time. But nevertheless, neat that they did that. Definitely makes sense, like you said. But yeah, I'll rent it. All right, so our the third review is going to be mine, of course, as Chase said, and this is The Glass Castle. This one is from director Destin Daniel Cretton. And this is follow-up to a movie that I meant to try to watch in the, this week prior, but I just didn't get to it, and it's Short Term 12. I never saw it. I know that it's super popular, but I don't even think it opened anywhere really very near me that I was able to access, and so it was just one that I missed. But this one is his follow-up to that, and it is based on the memoir by Jeanette Walls, and it tells the story of, Jeanette Walls, who sort of takes place in two timelines. We are able to see her as an adult, played by Brie Larson, and then and Brie Larson also plays her as a teenager, as an older teenager. And basically, when she was young, she was kind of moved from house to house. She lived hand to mouth, in the midst of economic poverty, and her father, played by Woody Harrelson, wanted to basically teach her how to live on the land by basically forcing all of his family to live on the land along with his wife, played by Naomi Watts, and then their 4 kids. And so basically the movie just kind of splits its time between the two time periods. We get a lot of insight into limited insight, but I'll get into that later, into the kids' lives, and then we get some stuff in the present, so to speak. It takes place in the 60s, I think, and the present is 1989. And so this one it's curious because here's the thing. The key to this movie is what we'll end up thinking about the father. And that's sort of the same thing that happened with Captain Fantastic last year. There are definite whispers of that in this movie. This movie certainly goes into directions that Captain Fantastic does not in its storytelling. So they are different, but the general premise of a father bringing his children out into the wilderness to learn is sort of similar. And like that movie, which I think was a bit stronger, this one struggles to help us figure out help us figure out what the movie thinks about the father figure in question. But here's the thing, here's the problem, and it's the problem I had with Captain Fantastic 2, ultimately. We're a lot more sure of what to think of the father than the movie is. And how I make that distinction is important because while we do get a lot of insight into sort of how this father works in terms of what his mindset is in this kind of interesting headspace that he's in, you get the sense that he's probably a veteran. It's never explicitly stated, but you get the sense that he was probably a veteran. And he feels like there's a lot of injustice in the world. He feels like it's basically the American economy is a rigged caste system that favors the rich and is probably correct. Wink, wink. But the thing is that he is a very he's a very problematic person in terms of how he raises his kids, and this is very, very clear to us. And the reason that it's clear to us is because of the point of view. The point of view in this movie is going to be an interesting thing to talk about, because I think that a personal point of view in movies is very important, and in any sort of storytelling. But it's that personal storytelling that kind of kills the movie for me. I think that we are given a point of view via Jeanette Walls that is too close to the subject. Because if you think about it, a daughter has a very concrete, very decisive. Any kid really has a very decisive view of their parent. So we get a very critical view of the father, but the film wants to have it both ways. It wants to see the father as this misunderstood hero of his family, but it also wants to be critical of how he raises his kids, how he kind of responds to his wife whenever she brings up anything that's critical of him. It's a very weird relationship situation between the mother and the father here. Specifically because the mother seems to enable a lot of his faults, and so it's a very conflicted, confused movie. I will get into some of the positives now. So I will say this movie looks amazing. There's a lot of really rich cinematography, especially during the nighttime scenes. I was constantly riveted by that. It's not something that I would nominate or whatever, but it is very good cinematography, and perhaps better than one might expect a smaller drama like this to have. The daytime scenes look very, I guess caramelized is the word, if you know what I mean. By that, it looks very lantern lit a lot. It reminds me of some of Roger Deakins' quieter work, not the big loud stuff that he does with like Assassination of Jesse James or something, but it reminded me quite a bit of that, and it was surprising in that way. And that was the thing that really struck me. Another great thing is Woody Harrelson is fantastic here. Despite the problems with the character, we are able to get some form of context into how he works and the pain that he constantly represses. He's a very alcoholic man, and that turns out to be a very important part of his character, as it always is with people who drink, and he's great. There are moments of quietness here that are just riveting, and it's because of him. I also thought that Brie Larson was fine. It's not the strongest moment for her. She's done stronger work, but she was pretty good. I think that she struggles to elevate a character who is constantly aloof, whether as a kid or as an adult, just kind of reactive. It's a very reactive performance, and those can kind of go either way, but she handled it well enough. And then one of the younger versions of, well, really both of the younger versions of her, Ella Anderson, who plays Jeanette at probably around the age of like 9 or 10, is terrific. And then Chandler Head, who plays her very young, is good in her 3 scenes or so. So solid performances all across the board for Jeanette Walls. Let me think. I think that it handles both of the periods of time pretty well. It goes back and forth. It's pretty well edited in that regard. I think that it handles the fact of a broken timeline fairly well, fairly typically too. I mean, we've seen this used before, but it's quite effective here, and that's pretty much the positives. Those are fairly strong positives. They raise my grade. They raise my grade a bit, but there's some stuff that really annoyed me here, and I kind of got into it with the state, just sort of like the state of being of the movie, which is that it wants to have a character who is decidedly one way, wants to have him 2 ways, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The character study going on is limited and limiting in in that way because we are so set on what we think of this character that it just becomes annoying when the movie tries to make excuses for him constantly. And by the end, it's just like you're supposed to, you know, feel a specific way that it's going to be hard to feel. And it's just the ending is strong too. That's another positive. I think that it ends on the right note, tonally and filmically, but the emotion is just it just doesn't clinch. And another big negative is somebody who is apparently just not having a good year, which is Naomi Watts, whose performance here is baffling. I don't know who should have played this role, but it should not have been Naomi Watts. I like her. I think that she's been good in the past, but she is not good here. It's a weird performance. She's not able to make sense of the character's nuances. She turns her into this weird, like, hipstery hippie person, and that doesn't seem to fit when we see the actual woman in the closing credits. It's just it's not the same person, and it's just an odd performance. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's less the filmmaking and more of the storytelling. And so I don't have that many, you know, in terms of quantity, I don't have very many negatives, but the negatives that are there well outweigh the positives. And this was just beyond frustrating to me. Constantly, I was being reminded of, you know, the fact that this could be a better movie given a clearer handling of the characters, and you know, central among them, the father figure, and you know, whether the movie, whether we're sure or not, the movie tries to have it both ways, and it just doesn't seem like a situation where you're going to have any conflicted thoughts about this guy. It's fairly clear that he's being rather it's a pseudo abusive kind of situation where he's just, you know, stringing them along, and there are multiple escape plans by the kids, not like, you know, kidnapping escape, but quote unquote escape, where they try to escape that life and he just doesn't let them. And you know, you just get this sense that he is just kind of keeping them there as kind of sort of prisoners that are also his children, rather than letting them actually, you know, learn about the world by being exposed to it. He just kind of teaches them a bunch of platitudes and you know, a lot of Southern platitudes, and it's just a frustrating movie. And so I'm going to be giving The Glass Castle a C.
So you're telling me that the best movie out of the bunch is about
the prequel to a prequel that is a spinoff? Yes.
So basically, the modern Chucky, like a modern day Chucky doll, is the best movie of the weekend. Holy shit! I mean, the Glass Castle, like, it's got all those actors in it. So obviously, I was on board with it, and I actually really liked Short Term 12. It was, I think, my second film I ever got a press invite for, so I remember it very fondly back in 2013. And that was a really powerful movie. That also introduced me to not only Brie Larson, but John
Gallagher Jr.?
No, not him.
Keith Stanfield.
Yeah, Keith Stanfield. That introduced me to him, and he gave one of my favorite performances in that movie and of that year. It was so fucking good. And of course, John Gallagher Jr. as well. It's a really well done film if you guys have not checked it out. So I was intrigued to see The Glass Castle, but after you giving it basically just straight up a middle grade, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good, fam. I'll wait until it comes out. But yeah, that's crazy, man. Fucking the Nut Job 2, D+, C+ from Annabelle Creation, and a C from The Glass Castle. It seemed like it was a pretty stagnant week for movies.
I mean, I will say that, like, you know, a lot of people will hear a D+ for the Nut Job 2 and a C for The Glass Castle. Like, what? There's only a C- in between those. But I will say, like, the gap is fairly large. It's just that the Nut Job 2 relative to animated movies is just kind of bland and forgettable, and The Glass Castle was just kind of underwhelming as a drama. And so clearly the well more worthwhile one is the Glass Castle, even though I can't really, I wasn't a huge fan of it.
Well, yeah,
But
no, it was one of those things as I was listening to your review that there was half positive, half negative. So you divided it down the middle. So I mean,
exactly you see.
yeah, I get it. So, so that will do it for our reviews, guys. So what did you guys think about the movies? If you did see them or whatever, please comment below our voice and let us know. I'm curious to see what you thought was the best one this weekend. Was it The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature? Were you Nutty by Nature? Please let me know down below if you are also Nutty by Nature. So that will do it for the reviews, guys, for this week. The main portion of the show is out of the way, so let's wrap things up and discuss some box office results, which it was my week to create the notes, which means it is Joel's week to guess. Now, the way we do this, ladies and gentlemen, is we give...
Hey, Chase. Hey, Chase.
What?
I totally misunderstood the notes because usually I've already looked. So I guess we'll just report what it is because, so this is for our listeners. At least this is what I tried to do. Maybe you just got lost in translation here, but... what I usually try to do is whenever I create the notes and I put down box office results, I write down the name of the person doing it. And so whenever I was kind of baffled because I knew that it was Chase's week to prepare the notes. We alternate. He wrote down box office results, Joel. So my brain told me, oh, for whatever reason, you're preparing the box office results. So I already know all these. I mean, we might as well just tell people.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I mean that's
I will say though, there are some things here that I'll talk about after you talk about the top 5 because there are some very interesting milestones being made.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a feeling that you're going to go towards the independent round down at the bottom for sure because I'm looking at the numbers right now and there's a lot of movies that kind of popped up in there, and I forgot they were coming out. But yeah, so I took it as I put Joel on his name next to the box office results because like, oh, he's gonna be the one guessing this week. So whatever, it's all good. But yeah, so starting out at number 5, we have the good old movie that stars Patrick Stewart as a pile of poop. A pile of shit for the kids. Emoji Movie has dropped another 45%, getting a total of $6.6 million. And my internet is acting up, but that's okay because we're going to move to our phone, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I do. All right, so it garnered $6.6 million for this weekend. Its budget is $50, so doubling that with marketing, it's probably going to make anywhere from $125 to $150. I can't really pinpoint the marketing on this thing because it was kind of high, but kind of not. So it probably needs to make about that much to break even. Right now, domestically, it's got 63, and worldwide it's at 97. So even if it doesn't really do well in the theaters, it's going to do really well for streaming. It's going to do well for families renting it and shit. So God bless America, the Emoji Movie has made profit. Number 4 is another movie that dropped a shit ton, almost 60% in its second weekend. It's a movie that Joel and I do not remember much about because it was very forgettable. That would be The Dark Tower with $7.8 million. That is really bad considering the budget on that bitch. Come on, phone. Yeah, so its budget is actually $60 million, so doubling that with marketing, probably $130, $140 to break even. Oh my God. So domestically it's at 34 and worldwide it's at 53. It's losing Sony a shit ton of money. I still believe this to be true. If Sony did not have Spider-Man, I would not be surprised if they shut down their film division. Because besides Spider-Man, the only franchise I even know that they have under their belt is that's profitable is the Jump Street franchise, Men in Black when they ever want to bring that back, and the Hotel Transylvania. Other than that, they have some really bad bombs each year. And the Emoji Movie, will make the money, but do you really want to put your name on that? It's not doing well at all. Number 3, surprisingly enough, beating The Dark Tower is the title of the movie, of which we can't really say on air because it's pretty graphic. The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature, with $8.9 million for that one. Its budget is unknown, but it was probably
$40 million budget
or 40. Yeah, so it's got to probably make about 100 to to break even when all is said and done, but it'll probably do well in streaming just like the Emoji Movie, so I really don't care. Number 2, Dunkirk is hanging in there, only dropped another 33%, making $11.4 million. That's pretty good, actually. Its budget is listed at $100 million, and doubling that with all of its marketing all said and done, they're probably looking at a $250 million price tag, which is not bad, because domestically it's at $153 and worldwide it's at $363, which is good. It's probably got Warner Brothers a good $100 million in profit. However, when you look at Interstellar compared to this one, the numbers are way lower than last time. So, yeah, they're making them profit, but not as much. So, I don't know. We'll see what his next film will be. And number 1 is not surprising to anyone, because these films always do bonzo bucks at the box office, whether it be Annabelle, Ouija, or anything in the Conjuring universe. That's why these films work with audiences. Annabelle Creation, $35 million on a budget of 15. That is how you do it, folks, because its worldwide numbers are at 71. $71 million opening weekend. If you double 15, Joel, I am no math expert. You double that and add marketing, I'm going to say about 40, 45 to break even. It's almost double that. That's exactly why these horror films are so good for the business. They're cheap as fuck to make. They make a shit ton of money, and they will end up fueling independent films down the line. So I'm glad these movies make money, because it will fuel the smaller markets for sure. But like I said, as a standalone horror film, it wasn't bad. It was a good little experience. So I'm actually cool with it making that much money. So that is your top 5. And now Joel is going to take it away with some extra movies that came out this weekend, because there was a lot of them, including one that we're going to see in a week and a half.
Yeah, so more prominently, The Glass Castle opened at number 9 with $4.9 million. Obviously, a movie like this, that's not bad, probably because its budget wasn't too big, and nobody cares what number a movie like this opens at, really. But yeah, and then also Good Time opened in limited release this weekend. It made $137.6 million. Wow,
good God.
And so obviously, that's going to be good. Chase's favorite movie ever made, The Only Living Boy in New York, at number 36 with.
I'm glad that movie flopped. It was terrible.
But yeah, so I have to talk about something real fast. This is incredible, and I don't know if. Oh, and also, I guess before I get to that one, the incredible one. I always like to pinpoint movies that rise above 100% in their weeks, just because it's interesting to see what happens with these smaller releases. So there are 3 that did that this week. There was at number 47, City of Ghosts, which is a documentary I watched a few weeks ago that's terrific. Rose 152.7%. It made $10,000 this weekend. That's pretty good for a small movie like this. And then also Menashe, which is a film from A24, our favorite, opened a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of expanding. It rose 156.2%. And then the big one was Wind River, which had, was opening wider in its second week, and it rose almost 300%. So that's pretty good. But, guys, the big story this week. Holy crap. Guys. Wolf Warrior 2. Chase, did you hear about this?
Yeah, because that was the film that has reportedly made $200 billion in China for no one even knowing about it.
Okay, so right now its worldwide total is $1 billion, and it's no, I'm sorry. This is weird. It's. I know that it's some super duper number. It's incredible, but Box Office Mojo is being a weirdo right now. It's not telling me the right number. Let me look, because it's super amazing. Hold on, Wolf Warrior 2. Wish I'd looked this up earlier. Box. Anyway, guys, this is amazing. It's It's already made $506 million. worldwide. And yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was an older number. It's almost made $700 million in 2 weeks. This movie is a. I'm gonna have to see it because it opened at our theater this week, or my theater this week. I've heard it's awful, but nevertheless, I've got to see something that is this big because this thing is basically it's a Chinese movie that is. I've heard it's super duper 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 nationalist, and it's incredibly violent and very almost sadistic kind of in its violence. But nevertheless, this thing is killing it in China. It is making so much money. It's insane. It's becoming one of the biggest box office successes in history. It's the most successful movie in Chinese history already. And I just had to pinpoint that because, dude, this thing is like raising all of like people's money. It's insane. I mean, it made 420,000 in America this weekend, and that was only a drop from its. It's in its third weekend. That was only a 17% drop in America. So I mean, this thing is killing it, and it was number 21 this week. So I just had to talk about that because that's insane. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Also,
just real quick, I don't think the number's that high. Like I've read a couple stories and kind of did like some deep research and shit, and China's notorious for like if people ask for a certain movie at the box office, like they'll give them tickets to a movie they want to push, and then they'll write their movie on the ticket. So it's a number that seems a little too far-fetched. Now, it has probably made a bunch of money, but that much in 2 weeks, I'm kind of a little skeptical. But then again, that's my conspiracy theorist coming out. So, anyways, that's my thoughts on that.
I also wanted to, on occasion at least, whether it's lamenting it or just kind of talking about it in a baffled sort of way, pinpoint anything that drops like above 60% because that's where the drops above 60% are where it gets really weird, right? Like, I mean, it's just like weird to see any movie kind of drop that much. And I just had to say 2 movies did it. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets dropped 62.8% this week for a total. It made $890,000 in its fourth weekend. This thing has a $177.2 million budget, and it's at $90 million worldwide. That is almost like half of the budget of the movie, and then you have to double the budget and add marketing and all that. This thing is bleeding money for sticks. It's amazing. And then the other one was sadly A Ghost Story dropped 65.8%, but they lost like 150 theaters, so I guess that's understandable, but it's still sad because that movie is so good. Needs to get more love. It needs to get out there a bit more.
It's with Valerian. Luc Besson's going to have to close EuropaCorp. There's no way that he's going to be able to keep the doors open after looking at this. I said this from the beginning. Like he's putting his company at risk, funding most of this movie by himself. Like. I said it from the beginning, and guess what? Now it's starting to really kind of show that no one really gives a shit about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing because he just made a bunch of like stupid comments about Marvel in the aftermath of this movie failing, where like the Captain America movies are propaganda and stuff. I mean, he's just not helping his case. And it's not a great movie or anything. I wasn't a huge fan, but it's sad to see an original sci-fi movie do this because we need more of them. But this is going to sully the that kind of scene where you have this big space opera kind of thing going, and it's very sad to see. But anyway, that's basically it.
There was one more
right.
to kind of touch upon. Ingrid Goes West, which is a trailer I've seen 1,000 times because that's the only thing that plays at Alamo nowadays. It came out in 3 theaters which was one theater less than A Good Time, and it actually made a little bit more than A Good Time. So it's kind of on par to do pretty much equal like independent business with Good Time, which is really great to hear because I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to they're probably going to play for the same audiences. Especially considering Good Times from A24 and Ingrid Goes West is from Neon, which is really trying to make its name known. Especially this year, it had the Bad Batch, and it now has this, and I think it's got some other stuff in the works. And
it had
it's trying to make. What is it?
Did it have Colossal as well?
Oh, that's right. It was. Yeah, they had Colossal, and that one did pretty well for its market. So it's interesting. They're trying to make their name known in a sort of kind of A24-esque way, where they're breaking out this year, and we'll probably see them kind of vying for each other's spot in the spotlight.
And I just want to put this in perspective for you guys. Like, $141,000 and $137,000 from these movies is nothing to laugh about. They premiered in 3 and 4 theaters. That is an average of, with Ingrid Goes West, $47,000 a theater, which is really good, and Good Time made $34,000. The Only Living Boy in New York, which is terrible, only premiered with $57,000 in 15 theaters. So it premiered in 5 times more theaters than Ingrid Goes West and could barely crack a third of that. That just shows you the massive buzz going in with a Good Time in Ingrid Goes West. I will not advocate The Only Living Boy in New York. It is one of the worst movies I've seen this year, without a fucking doubt.
It looks awful. It looks awful. It comes from the screenwriter, the space between us, and that pretty much tells me all I need to know.
It's because there was a lot of movies I saw this weekend that we didn't even touch upon. That one I will not advocate whatsoever. A little sad that Brigsby Bear didn't do as well. It finally came out this weekend here, which I've sat on the movie for months. I love it. It's in my top 10 for sure. And then Wind River I saw. Very solid movie. Gave it like a B. So, there's some interesting independent films out there, and Joel and I are seeing a good time in a little bit. So
we're getting into that period where not only are there a lot of really good, movies like this in this category coming out for the time of the Oscar season and stuff, but also movies exactly like this where they aren't really going to play for the Oscars, but they're interesting indie titles, and they're movies that are worth watching for stuff like box office news, because Ingrid Goes West and Good Time killed it this week, and I love that because it tells us that there are audiences like us who eat up this stuff, and certainly prefer this to some of the big movies. And
and it's like you said, like, they may not win the Oscars, but they're vying for our affection for our top 10 list, and so that's what's kind of exciting. It's like we have all this great content coming out, and it's like it's getting really tough to like whittle down like which one do I prefer over the other.
Yeah, I mean, Neon, the people over at Neon and A24 are clearly going to be very happy about these numbers. Like, the fact that they were able to open them in 3 and 4 theaters. I mean, and probably, 3 of the theaters that Ingrid Goes West opened in, those are the theaters that Good Time opened in. So, people probably went to, there might have been situations where somebody went from Ingrid Goes West over to Good Time.
It's possible.
I have a feeling that with these few theaters, they were probably the same ones. Like, there was just that one theater that Ingrid Goes West didn't open in, and the other 3 are the same. And so it just tells me that it's playing to a specific audience, and certainly is me. I can't wait for either of those. I'm super excited. So I think I'm seeing Good Time with you, hopefully, and then Ingrid Goes West I'm reviewing over the 25th, the weekend of the 25th. So I'm super stoked.
Yeah, so this was definitely a great weekend to talk about box office, because it varies from the little movie that could, like Annabelle, making a shit ton opening weekend, to The Dark Tower falling on its dick, to all these smaller films doing very well. Like, it's just, the numbers this week were pretty telling on what's thriving and what is literally dead on arrival. So that is it for the box office, guys. So please go watch independent films out there. There's a lot of great ones we recommend. Brigsby Bear, Brigsby Bear. Go see Brigsby Bear. You will not be disappointed. All right, so I've been talking about the movie since April. Like I will never stop. It's one of my favorites. So, anyways, that will do it for this week's episode, guys. 195. We're getting there, Joel. We're 5 away from the big old 2 double boob, AK 00200. So next week for 196. I almost said 126. We're going to be doing two. One's kind of like a bigger film, and one's kind of like a middle of the road film. We're going to be doing The Hitman's Bodyguard and Logan Lucky. So those are the films that we will be exploring next week. I'm excited for both. I feel like both of them are going to be, no pun intended, since we just talked about the movie's title, a good time in theaters. They both look entertaining as hell, so I'm actually looking forward to both of them. Joel, any anticipation for next week going into it?
Hitman's Bodyguard is basically just Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson. The movie itself looks blah, but I cannot wait for Logan Lucky. I've heard really good things, and so I'm a huge Steven Soderbergh fan. So that one I'm much more excited for. But certainly the Hitman's Bodyguard looks pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean it could just be like 2 hours of entertainment. I'm cool with it, and I'll let it pass because that's what it's not striving for anything deep or impactful. It's just striving for a great action comedy. And of course, Logan Lucky, like Joel and I both praised the trailer when we talked about it, so we're both looking forward to that as well. Introducing Daniel Craig. He's finally coming onto the scene. He's been acting for many decades, and he's finally getting his due, apparently, from the trailer. So, all right, so that will do it for this week's episode, guys. Thank you once again for listening. Please spread this around. Review, thumbs up, share. Do what you guys have to do. Let people know this is a pretty damn good podcast, motherfuckers. Don't say that, though, if you're telling your parents to listen to it, because then you'll probably get grounded. Anyways, Joel, where can the people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find my writing at my own website, joelonfilm.com. In addition to The Nut Job 2 and The Glass Castle, I have reviews of Armed Response, which is this kind of blah little thriller with Wesley Snipes that I watched over the week. And then also 68 Kill, which I reviewed jointly for my website and for DallasMovieScreenings.com. That one wasn't very good either, unfortunately, but it's based on a graphic novel, I think, or some sort of novel. And it's sort of a Pulp Fiction-y grindhouse entertainment kind of thing that just wasn't very good. But nevertheless, not a good weekend for movies, but you can find my reviews for those there and at DallasMovieScreenings.com, of course. You can also find me at Letterboxd at J. Copling, on Twitter at RealJoelCopling, and that's where I am.
That is where Joel has implemented his cum stain on the internet, and you can find my cum stain on the internet at Real Chase Lee on Twitter. My YouTube channel, which has other reviews that we don't even talk about in this show. Like I just said, I have Wind River on there, Brigsby Bear, and The Only Living Boy in New York if you want to hear me rant about a movie. So all that stuff is on there if you want to go check out some extra content. And, of course, like, subscribe, and all of that on these episodes that feature on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube. We're all over the fucking place. Joel and I we just appreciate you guys listening every single week. You guys are fucking awesome. Please stay cool, and we will see you guys next week for another episode of Real Me and Colin, a movie podcast. Because if you made it through this entire podcast and you're not a movie fan, we'll hopefully convince you to be one. Movies are our lives, and we want you to have them a part of your life as well. So we will see you guys next week. Peace out. The intro and outro music done by my friends band Fervent Roze. And guess what? All the links will be in the description below, Alright, so we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.